It's a couple of minutes after 6. We're going to go ahead and get started. I'm hoping everybody can hear okay. If there are any problems, if you'd let me know. Otherwise, we'll proceed with our meeting this evening. This is the NC12 Rodanthe Bridge STIP Project B2500B. This is our quarterly project update, and today is June 3rd, 2021. I will ask if you're calling in to the number listed here, if you would please mute your phone during the presentation so we don't pick up the background noise. Those who've called in via the computer have logged in. Your calls are muted anyway at the moment. Now, if you wish to submit a comment or question during this meeting, I'd ask that you use the chat box, which is typically located kind of on the bottom right side of your screen. We will address those comments as we, towards the end of the presentation as we finish up. Or you can call 984-205-6615 and enter the project code 8679. You can then leave a message which will be transcribed, and the presenters will receive it during the meeting, and we will try to address that at the end of the meeting along with the other comments. Tonight we're going to do an introduction of the DOT staff in attendance, review of the past update meeting questions and responses, provide a project update, and then we'll take questions and comments. Your DOT staff for this project is Sterling Baker, who's our division engineer for Highway Division 1. Pablo Hernandez, who is our resident engineer and the project manager on this project, also from Highway Division 1. Byron Kyle, our design build project engineer with NCDOT's design build unit. And tonight we also have Karen Capps from the design build unit with us. And I'm Diane Wilson, a senior public involvement officer with a group that has a very long name, but we call ourselves PICS-Viz, the Public Involvement, Community Studies, and Visualization Unit, and I will be your moderator. First, we're going to do just a quick review of the March 4th, 2021 update meeting. At that meeting, the responses to questions submitted at the December 3rd meeting were presented. And I'm going to pause here just a sec and ask, let me see who this person is. Lydie Leno, whose camera is on, but we have now muted him, so we're okay. At that meeting, we also presented an update on the project status, and the responses to the questions submitted on March 4th at that last meeting will not follow. The questions were in the general order received: what will happen to the S-Turns Road? And our current plans show that the area is crosshatched, which means that the roadway will be removed. The plans also show the turnaround that we will install at the north end of the Merlo Beach subdivision. What are the plans to ease traffic on NC12 during the high visitor season? Construction activities during the high visitor season will be restricted. There will be no daytime lane closures between June 15th and September 15th. Now, after September 15th, there are no lane closures allowed Friday afternoon to Sunday night. So the impact should be minimal. Are lane closures anticipated in the spring as earthwork and paving resume? Well, with paving ongoing at the north end, there'll be no effect to travel on NC12. We have a new roadway contractor who's working on plans for the south end, where there could be more involvement with NC12 traffic, but because of the newness of the contractor to the project, we're giving them time for getting a plan together. Will there be a fishing area on the bridge? Well, there are no plans for fishing access on this structure. This is strictly a highway bridge. Oops, sorry. How many miles of NC12 does the bridge abate? And that's approximately 2.8 miles that'll be bypassed by the bridge. What is the average clearance under the bridge at the highest point? That's approximately 17 feet 4 inches from the water line to the bottom of the bridge girder. This bridge will not be a high-rise or a humpback, if you will, bridge like the Currituck Sound or Oregon Inlet bridges. When will the roundabout at the southern end be started and completed? Well, constructing the roundabout now or early was considered. But maintaining traffic on NC12 in the existing alignment from the Liberty gas station to the S-curves during construction, due to the bridge not being fully completed, would cause issues with traffic backups during the high volume time frame. Is there a bike lane on the bridge? Well, there is no dedicated bike lane on the bridge. Okay. 8-foot wide shoulders, however, like the Oregon Inlet Bridge on both sides, will be available. And it should be noted that all paved areas associated with the project beyond the bridge will have 4 to 8 foot paved shoulders like the remainder of NC12 down to Hatteras. And I'm sorry, I'm picking up a lot of background noise here. I'm going to try to make sure that we can.
That was me, Diane. Sorry about that.
That's okay. The question was, what are you doing to prevent ocean overwatch into Merlo Beach after the road is removed? And a follow-up of, are you installing some protection going east to west to protect what has become a traditional washout area? Well, at the end of the Merlo Beach subdivision, along a portion of that remnant part of NC12, sandbags in the dune south of the refuge boundary will remain. Those will not be removed. Sandbags will be installed and a new dune running east-west will be built at the end of that NC12 remnant. Now, one of the challenges along NC12 is overwash from many different points. So the department is going to do our best to maintain drivable access on the remnant. Now, that was a very quick and easy recap of the last meeting. Now we're going to move to Pablo's portion of the June 3, 2021 update.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks, Diane, for getting us started with a recap of the previous meeting, as well as assisting with hosting this virtual meeting. This is the first time Diane and I are doing this in 2 different locations, so hopefully it'll work out well for everyone. As far as the what's happening right now with June 3rd, we just crossed the 75% complete threshold, and again, we're using that 75% as a measure of the number of different bridge components that have to go together to build this structure. And to date, that's equivalent to, of course, that includes the design and permitting and other claim settlement. So we're, as you can see on the screen, we're just under $133.3 million, and our total contract value, just as a reminder, is $155 million. That value does include some claim settlement for some permitting issues that we had at the very beginning of the project. Next slide. one of the slides that always helps everybody put things in perspective, especially on these long bridges, which I equate to essentially moving factories. Talk about the number of components that it takes to build the bridge. And so in this particular case, we have 90 out of 108 bridge bents have been installed. And what that equates to is 297 out of 352 piles have been driven into the ground. And then, of course, once we have those piles driven, then we pour a beam across the top of those piles, which allows us to set our concrete girders. As you can see here on the slide, we've got 288 out of 388 girders set. So we have 100 left to go, and I think they're on the final casting sequence where the girders are being fabricated up in Chesapeake, Virginia. Once we get the girders set, we will then place some of these precast concrete deck panels that allow us to then pour the ready mix concrete to form the driving surface of the bridge. And so right now we have 80 of 107 deck spans cast. And what the 107 deck spans means is just that. There's 107 spans from one end of the bridge to the other. Next slide. Just want to share a few highlights. And unfortunately, this has been one of the highlights that we've had ongoing for probably well over a year now, for at least our fourth community update meeting, that pile driving on the northern portion of the project, still has its challenges with the geology that we're experiencing down there. And fortunately, one of the techniques that has proven itself to provide some good positive results has been the augering or drilling inside the concrete cylinder piles that helps loosen that soil so that we don't overstress these piles and damage them. Again, now I'm kind of using the phrase northern portion of the project, since the two ends of the project, the north and south, if you've seen any recent media articles or driven by, the two ends are coming much more in view. And what that equates to is they're about a little bit more than half a mile apart from each other, or just around a half a mile apart from each other. So based on how things have been going, we are anticipating pile driving that could be complete in early September. Again, that's a date that does have some potential movement in it, which we all know we're going into the hurricane season, and as well as we could just have a very stormy season with just thunderstorms and rain showers, which that also limits our ability to do work. So go to the next slide, please. As I mentioned earlier in the previous slide about the two ends of the bridge coming closer together, as you drive or see any of the media pictures about the bridge, you'll see these two sets of work trestles with the yellow gantry cranes and the cranes that are sitting up on platforms that straddle the bridge. While yes, they will, if you were to project them out in time, they would meet, because obviously we want the bridge to each end of the bridge to meet. But the plan right now is that the northern work trestle, that one will probably work on 3 to maybe 4 more spans of bridge, and then the contractor will start dismantling those different components. The actual cranes themselves, the gantries, and of course all the supporting structure for the actual rail system and everything else that those cranes and gantries run on. Those will be trucked off the bridge. and probably going in multiple directions, either back south toward our large staging area behind the Liberty gas station, or possibly to another storage site in eastern North Carolina. Again, it's just going to depend on what the component is and what its earmark is for its next activity. And what that would allow is the south end to continue working toward the north and then eventually join the two bridges together to form one bridge. One of the components of this new bridge project is Cape Hatteras Electric is planning to relocate their transmission lines to be supported by the new structure. Phase one of their project is to install riser poles, which are assemblies that accept where the underground portion of their cables, when they do have to go up onto the poles, that's phase one of their project. So at the south end of the project, they've completed both the riser poles and the underground bore. They have not installed any cables yet. They've just got all the infrastructure in place so that when they're ready to pull cables, it's there. We're hoping that later in June this month that they'll begin the underground bore at the north end of the project, and you may have noticed driving by that they've got some new poles sticking up at the north end of the project as well. So fortunately, that work is 3/4 of the way complete. Next slide. As Diane recapped in one of the questions from our March meeting, asking about roadway work at the south end of the project, specifically the roundabout. The roadway contractor is still dealing with some backlog work and other work elsewhere in Northeast North Carolina. And so at this time, we have not, it has not been determined when they would resume that work. Most likely it will be I'm gonna call it late fall, possibly early winter. I don't see that roadway work beginning this summer, mainly just because of our high traffic volumes and the restrictions on daytime lane closures and things like that. Not only that, I think we mentioned this in some of the other meetings, that typically the summertime is when a lot of resurfacing work asphalt resurfacing projects take place. So that work, is very time sensitive, weather sensitive, and so the contractors' resources could be directed toward those other resurfacing projects around Northeast North Carolina. So, but as we do enter the summer season, that also means warm weather, and since we still have some concrete that we need to place for the structure, one of the more critical concrete members that we have to cast is the driving surface, or the deck. And those deck pours again are going to be temperature driven, and it would not be uncommon to start seeing those pours start happening starting at 2 to 4 o'clock in the morning throughout the summer. My estimate was we'd have anywhere from 1 to 2 pours, because if you remember from the statistics earlier, we have a little bit more than 20 deck pours to go. So, so again, hopefully, we'll be able to get those pours in and have minimal disturbance to the community. And again, based on where we're sitting right now and knowing what we know, and as far as the project history and timeframes for getting certain tasks completed, but without knowing what the weather impacts are going to be, right now we're still projecting a late 2021 or early new year of 2022 for completing the project and having traffic shifted onto the new structure. It would be at that time frame that then we start working on removing the NC-12, that portion of NC-12 that is on the Pea Island Wildlife Refuge from the southern refuge boundary up to the northern end of the bridge. Also, that's what we'll be targeting for there's a parking lot or a staging area, daytime use parking area that we've constructed for the Fish and Wildlife Service that we are currently using as a staging area at the very north end of the project. That would then also become available to the public. And with that, I think that concludes. Yep, that concludes my information. So.
Thank you, Pablo. Great update today. As you'll see here, the contact information, Pablo's number is listed here, or you can send emails to nc12-rodanthe@publicinput.com. All of those emails are sent immediately to the project team, and you can always call the 984-205-6615 number. When prompted, enter the code 8679 and leave a voicemail, and those are immediately transcribed, and the recording as well as a transcribed message are immediately sent to the project team as well. So we appreciate any of those comments. I will say that our next update is going to be on September 2nd, which will be the first Thursday in September. It will begin at 6 p.m. and our location is to be announced because it could be, believe it or not, that we're going back to some live meetings at that point. We'll see how things are going. And with that, we will open the chat. We ask that you use the chat box for questions. And we have one from Betty Schultz, who asked Pablo, if you could please define the term bent.
Bent. Okay. Yeah. No, that's a good question. Good question. What it is basically the combination of the piling and the caps that form that frame or structure that the girders, and the girders are the long beams that span from support to support. And so, like in the picture, in the picture that Diane has up on the screen right now, you can see the vertical piling going into the water, but then you'll see that vertical piling that intersects with what looks to be like a little square. That's actually a very large concrete beam that runs. Yeah, there you go. Thank you, Diane. That runs across the width of the bridge that supports the individual beams that support the roadway. If I'm not mistaken, I believe the phrase "bent" comes from the trestle bent bridge from the railroad terminology. So hopefully that helps. Some states refer to the individual supports as piers.
Okay, so Betty also asked, can you put up a map of which parts of current NC-12 will be kept and which will be gone? I'm not sure if I have one, but I believe, Pablo, you could answer this with from the north end of Mirlo Beach to the north end of the bridge, that roadway will be removed, correct? I will look for a map very quickly.
Yeah, I was going to say the public hearing map would be the best map to put up there.
I'm pulling it up.
Probably take a few minutes because that's a pretty large file. But the road that will which will be removed. It will start at the southern boundary of the Pea Island Wildlife Refuge, which is also the northern boundary or northern limits of the Merlo Beach housing subdivision. So from that line north, about 1.8 miles of the roadway will be removed. From that boundary line with the refuge in the Merlo Beach subdivision, from that boundary south toward the Liberty gas station, all of that portion of NC12 will remain. It will no longer be called NC12. It will still be maintained by the state and retain a state maintenance, but it will have a new name, and we have not determined what that new name will be. It will most likely be a 4-digit state route number.
And you're correct. This is taking a minute to pull up. It is on our project website, however. Okay.
I see your question is, why will the road be removed rather than just letting it deteriorate naturally over time? In this particular area where the road is being removed, the department, the state of North Carolina, does not own the right-of-way. We do not own the property where NC12 is. We have easements granted to us from U.S. Department of Interior through the Fish and Wildlife Service. And one of their requirements is that the road be removed because if it does deteriorate naturally, then, whether it be with overwash or other habitat concerns, that asphalt surface is just not compatible with the wildlife refuge.
So let me show the map. I'm sorry, I'm working on that. Good, I'm glad that does make sense. Let's see. Gosh, I'm hoping there'll be more questions. There we go. I believe it's pulling it up there, the area that will be removed.
Yeah, so in this particular map, yes, there's a modified version of the public hearing map, but from
green to green, basically, isn't it?
Yes, exactly. From green to green, that portion of NC12 will be removed.
Do we have any other questions? It does, and I will say that on the ncdot.gov, if you do a /projects /NC-12-Rodanthe. There's information on the project, and these maps are available. Or if you email us, we'd be happy to send you a copy. We can email them to you. Oh, Adam, that would be awesome. If you would provide a link in the chat box. I guess I could have done that, not thinking.
No, that's a good idea.
I do have it handy, so I'll go ahead and put that in there. But thank you for reminder. There are maps and other information available there. That's okay. It's easy to do. We have other questions this evening? We're making progress, moving along well, and from the picture you can see this is going to be a beautiful bridge, and will hopefully take care of a lot of the issues and the overwash and the flooding and the washouts that have happened there for so many years. A reminder that next update meeting will be September 2nd. And if all goes well, we will be holding that not only online, but we will be in person in Rodanthe as well. We'll give a few more minutes for questions. This looks like maybe, Pablo, over the last few months, you've answered them all.
It certainly feels like it, but there's always good ones out there.
Oh,
I'd remind people that it does take a couple of days to get this processed and turned around, but I would hope by Tuesday that the recording of this meeting, the audio and video, will be available on the project website that we posted earlier, and a PDF of the PowerPoint will be available as well for those who'd like to download it or perhaps listen and view again. Oh, we did get a new question from Betty. Betty, you've been our prime submitter tonight. Thank you. Regarding the new Bonner Bridge, how come the south terminus goes right into a huge sand area? And I guess that's technically the Bass Night Bridge.
Yeah, the south end of the Oregon Inlet Bridge, since the terminal groin was constructed on the north end of Hatteras Island, that terminal groin is doing its job of maintaining the northern end of the island such that it isn't eroding away, as well as capturing sand. And so with that, we have lots and lots of sand entering into the NC-12 easement area. And again, you know, we as a department do not own the right of way. We have the road there by easement, and we are limited on where we can store that sand. And we are working with Fish and Wildlife Service, the Pea Island Wildlife Refuge, to come up with strategies to manage that sand. And you know, it's almost too much of a good thing. I hate to phrase it that way, but that's kind of the best way I can put it right now. And that area is more stable than other areas because there is some sound side erosion rates that are pretty high. So we also not only have to protect NC-12 from the ocean, but we also have to be concerned with it from the sound. And so in that particular case, where the new bridge is and where the new southern end of the road or southern end of the bridge and the road is, it's much more stable.
Betty says, thank you. The area has always been a problem, and we always thought it would have made sense to extend the bridge. And thank you for an informative presentation. Have a good night. Thank you, Betty. We appreciate your participation for sure. With that, I believe I'm going to go ahead and call a close to this evening's meeting. Remember that you can send an email, as you have here, NC12 Rodanthe diane-rodanthe@publicinput.com. You can also call the 984-205-6615 number and enter code 8679 to leave a message. If you come up with a question or anything that you need after this meeting, please feel free to do that and someone will reach back out to you shortly. With that, I'll thank you all for coming this evening and we'll see you on September 2. Good night.
Good night. Thank you, Diane. Thanks, everyone.